Bonnies Insider is brought to you by Universal Primary Care, providing care to the entire family.
Hello and welcome back to Bonnies Insider, brought to you by Universal Primary Care. I'm your host, Tommy Valentine. Well, it was quite the scene here at St. Bonaventure this past week. These athletic fields have been hopping from sunup to sundown, as you can see behind me. And all that means we have a packed show in store for you this week, featuring an interview with a woman who carved her name into the St. Bonaventure Athletics Hall of Fame on this very field, women's lacrosse alumna Eboni Preston Laurent. Later, head men's and women's cross country and track coach Bob MacFarlane steps into the coach's corner, and we'll catch up with a few student athletes who were involved with National Voter Registration Day. Leading off today's show, though, is freshman men's soccer player Mitch Wambach. Yes, you heard that right. The nephew of legendary women's soccer player Eboni Wambach is a Bonnie, and he talks about what it's like being related to one of the world's greatest athletes and shares his story about what led him to SBU.
My recruiting process was a very interesting story. I first heard about St. Bonaventure when my mom went here, so it's been a true legacy that she wanted me to experience. I first got here for an ID camp my sophomore year of high school, and it was just we played here. We did a couple scrimmages. Coach Kwame had us do a lot of drills that I thought were very interesting, and obviously I want to do that more here. And went on my campus recruiting visit, and I just loved it. Loved the team, loved the coaches, and loved the school. Everything was perfect. Getting to know the guys was obviously, and all the guys were already a part of the team no matter what. We do everything together, we're always a team, and on and off the field, we always look out for each other, and I love that. It's one of the reasons I came here, and our practices are very intense. Ever since we got into contact, we just, on and off the field, we're busting our butts and making sure everyone knows who's ready to go. And I can already see everyone's always ready to go. Abby was a very good role model throughout my life. She told me many fascinating stories of how she got to play in college and obviously playing for the national team. I really do look up to her. She's one of the people I respect. She showed me a lot of soccer on and off the field, what you should do, what you should not do. She just told me to love the game, and I obviously do. With the last name, I don't feel a lot of pressure, because I just think all throughout my life I just was told to be yourself. Obviously have role models, but I've always wanted to just be myself, and I always respect Abby, but I'm trying to step out of her shadow a little bit so I don't have to have the pressure on my shoulders like her. As a defender, you got to just have a lot of IQ for the game. You got to know where you are at all times and how to circulate the field, and obviously you got to be able to take on one-on-one defending, take every practice seriously, because you never know, you could be in a game and the same thing could happen. Bonnies fans should expect obviously our team to do very successful. I can see it in a lot of cool ways, of how we're going to be very successful in the upcoming years. I can definitely see it, but they should expect us winning the games and cheering us on.
Mitch, I think I speak for the entire Bonnie Nation when I say we are so excited you're a part of our men's soccer team, and hopefully Aunt Abby can make it to a few home games in the spring. Well, Mitch is one of hundreds of Bonaventure student athletes who are back on campus and participating in off-season workouts. We caught up with a few this week to find out what it's been like adjusting to life as a student athlete during a pandemic.
It was a long summer, not really doing much, being hunkered down at home, but I think we're all glad to be back. We got one under our belt so far, but this will be a full game almost, so yeah, we're all looking forward to it, get back on the field and competing against each other. I was lucky enough to win a starting spot on the weekend last year, and I've been plagued with injuries my first couple, so I'm ready to get back out and show them what I got. For most of the guys, I believe none of them played real summer ball. Me and a few others got lucky. I'm from Buffalo. There was a league back home that I got to compete in, so I got a couple innings under my belt. Most of these guys they haven't done much since we've left in the spring. I'm sure it's different for different guys. For me, it's been fairly easy. This is my 6th year in school. Some of these guys, like the freshmen, I'm sure it's tougher for them, but we're working together. We're going to be good. We'll be fine.
Having the opportunity to kind of have a full game now with 8 pitchers going is really going to be a game situation for the first time for a lot of kids since really the spring semester. So it's really going to be good to kind of have that game atmosphere for us all to finally get around and play. I was actually also fortunate enough to play summer ball in Rochester, and I was able to get my innings in, and it was a good experience to kind of just keep myself loose and kind of keep my arm in condition to keep playing. And even though we didn't have a spring season, I was glad that I was able to get at least something in over the summer. Very weird to know that the way baseball had changed and how we were all socially distanced in the dugouts, and we weren't able to high five or anything like that. So it was really a different type of atmosphere and just how everything worked. I mean, granted, we're just happy to be out there playing baseball. But practicing now is like we would be in the springtime, which again is better for all of us. Even getting out here now in the fall is just better work for us, and just kind of get to know all the teammates and just kind of start building that team chemistry for the spring.
It's gonna feel a little weird. I mean, being back out here is a little weird because we've had so much time off. I know for me, like I didn't get a chance to play in the summer, so I'm seeing live pitching and stuff for the first time in like 6 months. So it's definitely different, not something we're used to, but glad to be back and playing. This summer was probably the first time I hadn't played baseball and probably since I was like 6 years old. So like I was supposed to go play in Cape Cod, which would have been really cool. It got canceled, so I kind of didn't have a chance to play anywhere. I just worked out, I worked. It was definitely a weird summer, not something I'm used to. I mean, me and Stilly were tearing it up, like we were having great years, and I think we could have been a really good team and we could have done a lot in the A-10. So I mean, it sucks that we got that taken away from us, but it gives us a little bit more motivation to do it again this year. We're still able to practice and do pretty much everything we usually do, so it's not too different except for the masks, and that's the only thing that's really changing. I think when athletes and people, like a whole team, you see them down here and stuff and they're wearing their masks, I think it kind of will encourage other people to wear their masks, so I think it helps the whole campus community. Obviously, wearing your mask right now is really important if we want to stay here on campus, so I think we're just setting a good example, and we keep wearing them, we'll stay here, and then we'll come back in the spring.
And a thank you to all our student athletes for continuing to follow social distancing guidelines and adhering to the Bona bubble. Continue to serve as a role model for the St. Bonaventure community. Coming up after the break, the highly anticipated interview with Bonnies Hall of Famer Ebony Preston Laurent that you won't want to miss. You're watching Bonnies Insider, brought to you by UPC.
You'll light candles with strangers the day you arrive, and extinguish them with lifelong friends the day you leave this place. A place that will transform your life, inside and outside the classroom. A place where you'll learn to care about each other, and about others you never imagined caring about. A place where people help you believe in yourself. For 160 years, St. Bonaventure University has helped good students become great people.
Away from campus? No problem. You can follow Go Bonnies wherever you are on Instagram and Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Keep up with all your favorite squads, and don't forget to use the hashtag Unfurl.
What makes St. Bonaventure alumni, especially its student athletes, so unique is their ability to transcend athletics and truly make a difference in the community. That couldn't be truer for our next guest as we sit down with Bonnies Hall of Famer Ebony Preston Laurent. Inducted into the St. Bonaventure Athletics Hall of Fame last winter, Ebony is the Bonnies women's lacrosse career leader in wins and moved into the coaching ranks following graduation. Then she was named as the first ever Senior Manager of Diversity and Inclusion at US Lacrosse in 2013. Her work in that role continues today as she uses the power of athletics to create positive change in our nation's landscape.
For the past 7 years, I was hired as the first and only diversity director at US Lacrosse. A lot of my work has been being the voice for underrepresented communities, whether it's adaptive lacrosse or wheelchair lacrosse, adults with physical limitations or kids with special needs, whether they have cognitive or physical limitations. I work a lot with people of color and minority groups, LGBTQ communities as well, creating policies, resources, and scholarship opportunities. We're working as an organization and as a national governing body to provide guidance and perspective and to be a leader as it relates to equity and inclusion. That's been pretty special to me, just to make sure that we have representation, that someone's always at the table speaking on behalf of these communities so that they feel like their voices are heard, that we're supporting them properly, and they have an ally at US Lacrosse. Just to be an example and a face for kids that look like me, to give them just the positive influence and the opportunities that I could create in this position and in this role. And so it was a perfect fit of two things that I really loved and two things that were really important to me. I've made a lot of great relationships and connections, again, through the sport of lacrosse, and stemming from that initial connection and experience at Bonaventure, that's allowed it to kind of come full circle. So it's awesome to see that the sport can still do so much for me as a professional and as an adult now. We're having a lot of difficult conversations and a lot of conversations that we weren't having before, and areas where we might have been checking the box or kind of glazing over ways we can cultivate change and really digging deeper within our organization. Just being a DEI advocate, I've also seen that within other organizations as well that are either reaching out to me in an advisory capacity or having internal conversations similar to ours where we're really starting to challenge what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I see that across the board because realistically, if athletes weren't speaking out, I'm not sure that those would be some of the conversations people would be having. So we also have to figure out how to continue these conversations when the protests go away. We still need to figure out how to make sure that this is top of mind and people are still having these conversations and challenging each other. You've seen it with the NBA and the WNBA, colleges that have really become advocates for social justice and for change and for voting. And I think that's important for athletes to understand the voice that they have and the power that they have to provide information to the community, stand for something, and to just be a change agent. I have loved seeing athletes find their voice through this process and to just lead our country in a positive direction, to start a different dialogue about what it means to be Black in this country. My goal and my hope is that athletes also dig a little bit deeper. So it's not just about Black Lives Matter, and it's not just about police reform, but we also need to look at other ways that systematic racism have impacted our country. For instance, I'm big on educational reform and prison reform. If you look at the disproportionate measures that we're using in a lot of urban schools and with kids that are impacted in minority communities and the opportunities that they don't have as compared to schools in suburban areas or well-off areas, that's their starting point. That's where they're getting their initial instruction, and to just see that there's so much inequity in terms of education, resources, opportunities. We need to look at that as a country from all different areas and not just one component of it. As we continue to keep having these dialogues, I'm hopeful that athletes will find their niche and what they want to support and what they want to look and dive deeper into and to get involved. So it's not just about a shirt, it's not just about a hat, it's not just about kneeling, it's about what are you doing to impact your community and what action steps are you taking. It's about really finding your niche and making an impact there, because there's a lot of areas where we need to do better and we need a voice. Just kind of making sure that we're spreading the wealth and fighting a lot of those different angles is really important to me. You know, everybody's talking about it right now. So if you haven't taken the time to do some self-education and reflection, then now's the time to do so if you really want to be a part of positive change. Another piece that's important, you really start to make yourself uncomfortable. So put yourself in uncomfortable situations, grow your network so you're around people that don't look like you all the time, and start to ask questions. You'll find that people, when they see that you're genuine and you're authentic in your approach and what you want to do, people are pretty good at being receiving of any questions you might have, any thoughts you might have, how you want to get involved. People can read that and they are willing to support and have you come on board. But outreach is part of that conversation of like, you know, I want to get involved. Please share more information with me. I've been doing my research, but I just want to figure out what's next, or do you have any resources for me that I can look into? Being okay with being uncomfortable is important, because it's a privilege to live your life and never be uncomfortable, because for people of color, we're uncomfortable every day. When I walk into the room and I'm the only person of color in all of my meetings, you haven't had that experience, and you need to figure out how to find that experience for yourself so that you can see how people are feeling and understand what that is and have those conversations. So just addressing those, just a starting point, figure out what you can do in your local community by being around other folks that can give you advice or guidance is important. Just continuing to connect the dots and make sure we have representation in all things from these communities that oftentimes aren't having a voice or don't have a seat at the table.
Following in the footsteps of Ebony could be this next group of St. Bonaventure student athletes. This week brought National Voter Registration Day, and Bonnies student athletes did their part to help members of the campus community get registered to vote. We caught up with St. Bonaventure's Student Athlete Advisory Committee to learn a little bit more about their initiative.
I really think it's important for student athletes and members of the community to be out here to register to vote today. It's our right to, and it's important to make our voice matter and count, and voting is a special opportunity that we have to kind of choose who we want to be in office and choose how we get to be as a country. Not only do we want to be the best on the fields, we want to be the best we can be off the fields, whether it's not in the classroom or what we do in the community. And what better opportunity is it to be an active citizen by voting? Give everyone the chance to not only be the best student athlete they could be, the best student they could be, but just the best overall person they can be by being an active member of this community.
We have a special voice as youth in our country. We are the future of our country. It's really an opportunity for change in our community and nationally, and every vote really counts. Student athletes, we can set the standard for what needs to be and what needs to be done, and that's sort of really our goal here in our voter registration drive.
Please register to vote and request a mail an absentee ballot. If you're not from the Olean area, it's very important to make your voice heard. Thank you so much.
And to ensure your voice is heard this election day, the Student Athlete Advisory Committee and University are urging people to get out there and register to vote. We're winding down here on Bonnie's Insider, but we have one more segment to bring you after the break. Hear from the man that's putting the cross country and track programs back on the map. You're watching Bonnie's Insider, brought to you by UPC.
Away from campus? No problem. You can follow Go Bonnies wherever you are on Instagram and Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Keep up with all your favorite squads. And don't forget to use the hashtag Unfurl.
What's the best way to pick the right college? Use your head and make a practical choice based on cost and academics? Or follow your heart to a place that just feels right? At St. Bonaventure, you can do both. Here, you'll join a unique community that celebrates individuality, meet professors as passionate about people as they are about learning, and form lifelong connections without a lifetime of debt. Come see for yourself why St. Bonaventure isn't just a special place, it's a smart choice.
Welcome back to Bonnie's Insider, brought to you by UPC. Well, there aren't many coaches in the country quite like Bob MacFarlane. As if being the head men's and women's cross country coach wasn't enough responsibility, in 2017 he guided the rebirth of the men's and women's track programs here at SBU. In this week's installment of Coach's Corner, MacFarlane talks about how COVID-19 was just a minor speed bump for a program that's on the up and up.
Last year was very interesting. First of all, we started off with the cross country season, and there was an awful lot of positives there. I still think right now that was probably one of the best men's and women's teams we've had in a while. What we always look for is the kids PRing almost every time. 88% and 87% of the guys and the girls improved the whole season. So that was a big positive. The very interesting part too of last year during cross is when we went to Kentucky. And there were over 67 teams, and the boys ended up in 27th, and the girls in their race with 40-some, they were 6th overall. So that was a big plus because that's the biggest cross-country meet in the country. More than anything, too, is what we saw was our freshman class really beginning to stand out. And we feel that this freshman class is really going to complement the sophomore class that we have. So in that sense, that was some of the highlights, I would say. You would ask me in January, February, I had no clue until I was told, start Zooming. And I'm thinking, wow, whatever this is. Actually, it was very good. It ended up a very positive situation. We use it an awful lot. And more than anything, just to make sure that they're doing their work. Having any issues with classes, let us know at that particular time. Just a connection to make sure that the kids were connecting with us. During this period of time, we weren't really allowed to tell them what to do. A lot of them were doing their own running. We saw individuals running. We can't stop you. If you want to go out and run, you can go out and run. And they were doing it, finishing our second week this week. And I'm telling you right now, they're right where we think they should be at this point in time. I think what the only big difference is right now is the freshmen. A lot of our kids, older kids, don't know the freshmen. And the reason behind that is because we usually come to camp 10 days early before school starts. And that's a good time for the bonding sessions to occur. So it's like, who's this? who's that? You know, it's like they don't know each other that well yet. So that's coming along now. And the freshmen are beginning to understand what the training is all about. But they talk about the Bonnie bubble, which is very good. I understand that. We have our bubble now too, okay, the cross-country runners. Every Zoom meeting we've had, we always end it. Be safe out there, wash your hands, social distance, and wear your mask. I mean, it was drilled into their head. Protocols they have put in place thus far, knock on wood, you know, it's been holding true. And the thing is, we just can't become complacent or lazy, all right? And that's what we, Sarah and I, keep telling this kid. You can't become complacent. You got to keep at this and don't stop.
Always great getting to meet with one of St. Bonaventure's biggest characters. Best of luck to Coach MacFarlane and all of his running teams this year. That does it for us here on Bonnie's Insider. What a week in sports it was. And here's what you have to look forward to coming up next week. Tim Kenny is back for the second installment of From the AD's Office. Head women's soccer coach Steve Brodarski will also be on, and we'll get to know men's basketball junior Jaron English, while also taking a look at the softball team's annual Brown and White World Series. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. Join us again next week when Bonnie's Insider returns. I'm Tommy Valentine. So long, and thanks for watching.
Bonnie's Insider has been brought to you by Universal Primary Care, providing care to the entire family.